Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Fran Baxter, and I'm the chairperson of the Northborough Zoning Board of Appeals. This is September 28th, 2021, and it's past the hour of 6 o'clock. This open meeting of the Northborough Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted remotely, consistent with the Governor Baker's executive order of June 16th, 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. All members of the Northborough Zoning Board of Appeals are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows the Northborough Zoning Board of Appeals to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. And now I'd like to confirm that the board members and the persons, okay. Members, as I call your name, please respond to the affirmative, stating your presence. Dick Rand.
Present.
Paul Tagliaferri.
Present.
Mark Bertan.
Present.
Brad Blatchett.
Present.
Okay. And Susie Saliska.
Present.
Okay, so that's, oh, yes. All right, so that's 5 voting members, and Susie is our alternate. Also attending is Kathy Jubert.
Hi, here.
Fred Federico.
Bob Frederick.
I'm here.
I'm sorry, Bob Federico, and Fred Litchfield. Sorry.
You can call me Fred as well.
There you go. All right, thank you. All right. So it is past the hour of 6 o'clock, and the first item on the agenda is to consider the petition of Arthur Pierce of Wegmans Food Markets, Inc. for a variance for a new wall sign on the property located at 9102 Shops Way, map 106, parcel 7 in the industrial zoning district. And if the person who is presenting for this could be brought in, Jim, and state their name and relationship.
Yep, so I brought in Tyrese. There are a few other people out there, so I'm not sure if anyone else is with this applicant as well. So if you're with an applicant and I don't bring you over, please feel free to raise your hand and I'll move you over with the applicant.
It should only be me tonight. So thank you so much. I am not Arthur Pierce. I'm Tyrese Bryant from the Wegmans Site Development Group. Arthur is on a well-deserved vacation this week with his wife. So I am stepping in for him. I didn't know if you needed to, I kind of cut out when I was rejoining, so I don't know if you said anything when I was rejoining as a panelist.
No, just that, to state your name and your relationship to the project.
Okay, so I'm Tyrese Bryant. I am project manager in our site development group for Wegmans. And did you need to swear me in or am I good to go?
You're good to go.
Okay, so I am here. I will get right through this. I am here for a variance. We are seeking to swap out an existing sign on our food market. If you're looking at the food market, it's going to be on the left-hand side. We are seeking a variance to swap out our fork, dish, and goblet sign, which is 57.3 square foot. And we are asking for relief to replace that sign with a wine, liquor, and beer sign, which totals 75.4 square feet. Obviously, the code requires us to obtain a variance for an additional sign. It's not an additional sign. Again, we're replacing this for relief. As it's stated throughout our application, the total square footage of the 4 signs are relatively small to the overall square footage of our large food market and our building facade. In addition, the building frontage, as you all know, it's not visible to the public roadway. It's a building and in a development with other retail locations. This signage is key for marketing purposes, for the success of businesses within the food market, with the products that we sell of wine, liquor, and beer. We see no substantial detriment to the public good based on the distance and the location of the business. And granting of this relief will neither nullify or degrade, in our opinion, the zoning laws. And as I said, we are looking just to relief from one signage to an additional sign, to a new signage, pointing out a key marketing piece in our business. As you see in the plans, the signage is going to be white lettering, just as the Wegmans signage. And it does illuminate in red, just like the main Wegmans sign and the Market Cafe sign on the building. So it'll be that same white block lettering and the same illumination at night. Right now, the goblet and the fork don't illuminate, so that will be the only difference, is that there will be an additional illumination with this sign. But like I said, it'll be the same type of illumination as the Wegmans main sign and the Market Cafe signage. That's pretty much all I have. I think you all have all of the additional information. And so I'm open to any questions that the board may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bryan. Okay, members of the board. Okay. Well, at the moment, staff, any questions or concerns? All right, Bob.
All set here.
Okay, Bob Federico.
Bob, it's good to see you. I know we've talked via email before, so it's good to see you.
Yes, Tyrese, how are you tonight?
I'm well.
Madam Chair, the zoning interpretation form had two things on it. One was adding a fourth sign, which requires a variance. I don't believe the applicant is asking for a fourth sign tonight. They're just asking to exceed the 100 square foot sign area that's allowed in the particular district. One of the things that's difficult to calculate is I asked the applicants to provide the area of all the other signs to determine how much relief is to be granted. Unfortunately, I did not receive that information. So I don't know how much square footage relief you'd want to write into your decision. However, the increase in area, I could do my math real quick here, 75, 7.3, 9.
I think he said about 18.
18.1.
I think you're right. Yeah, 18.1 feet. So, 18.1 feet in the grand scheme of things is not huge. But then again, I don't have a specific number. Probably just, if you want to write in your decision, if you decide to grant it, let's just add 18 square feet to the current allotted amount.
Okay. All right,
And that's
Bob,
all I have.
okay, is it possible that the adding the fourth sign is because it's going to be lit versus not?
The current sign, if you will, there is a relief sign. It's not lit. It's almost like it's carved into the side of the building, which does constitute a sign. So in terms of requiring a fourth sign, you're replacing one sign with a new sign. So the actual count of signs is going to remain the same.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bryan, do you know what the actual total is?
No, I do not, Bob. I wasn't aware of that question prior to the hearing tonight, or I would have provided that information to you. And I apologize for that.
All right, thank you. Brad, did you have a question?
No, nope.
Oh, I thought I saw a hand. Okay. All right.
No question.
Board members, concerns? Okay. All right, well, we can come back in a minute. This is a public hearing, so I'm going to now ask any one of the attendees if you have any questions or concerns, if you could raise your hand and wait to be recognized. Okay. Let me just make sure one more time. Okay, I see none. One more time around the squares here? Any question? Oh, Susie.
It's-
I remember when we did another sign that was in this development, it was the total square feet. So the 100 square feet for these, is that all of the Wegmans signs? I was just confused about that. It's all of them together?
Yes, signs in the industrial district or the MCOD district, which is an overlay district, allows for the aggregate of 100 square feet per retailer. Several of the buildings being bigger in scale, I believe we've done probably 4 or 5 variances through the 4 years that I've been in Northborough, to either add additional signage or have a sign that is over the 100 square feet allotment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mark?
Madam Chair. Mr. Bryant, do you anticipate phasing out the other signs in any time in the near future? Is there any program here that we should be aware of to give you more than the 20 feet you need, other than you'll be back here in 3 months looking for another 20 feet?
No, I don't see that at all. We're not phasing out anything that's current on top of the pharmacy, the Wegmans, and the Market Cafe, or adding any additional signage. I would say usually for any Wegmans food market, depending on what state we're in and what laws, you're either going to see the Wegmans, Market Cafe, or pharmacy signage if there's a pharmacy, or wine, liquor, and beer. I'm really surprised personally that wine, liquor, and beer wasn't initially a part of this package, because we're seeing that more in food markets that do have wine, beer, and liquor incorporated, especially as we continue to grow in states like North Carolina, where like Massachusetts, it's in the store as well. So this is a normal package that you're seeing before you, where where we're seeing where this goblet, fork, and spoon are being phased out, and you will see Market Cafe, Wegmans, and wine, beer, and liquor if it's a part of the food market.
Okay.
Thank you. Paul?
So was there a variance for the initial signs, or is this an additional, just the first variance for signs?
I believe that there was a variance to exceed the 100 square feet right from the get-go. But I'm gonna let.
Yeah, I would look for the town on that. I would assume, and Kathy, I don't know if that there was a variance for all of the signage, or at least some of the signage on the building, because it exceeds that.
I can, if you want to, go, just continue on, I can, I'll just pull up the old file and check it while you're discussing it, or.
Okay, if you would, because I
Yep.
don't want to close the hearing and then have you bring back something that is of a concern to someone.
Okay, yep, let me just
Brad.
double check then.
Okay, Brad?
Yeah, so question to the applicant, Mr. Bryant. So the sign you're looking to ask for, is it replacing it, or is it on top of the current sign? Just want to make sure there's not a.
So we'll be replacing. So as Bob mentioned earlier, the goblet, plate, the goblet, fork, and plate, it's etched in the ephes. So we'll be replacing that ephes, taking it out and replacing it with brand new ephes, and then putting the new signage over it. So that piece of ephes, it's edged, it's defined in the ephes. That ephes is going out, it's being replaced with ephes, with new ephes, and then the sign is going to be installed. Okay.
And second question, is this just aligning with current branding?
Yes. Yep, 100%.
Okay.
The wine, liquor, and beer is very common, a part of our new sign our new packages. You're seeing a bit less of in the ephes of the goblet, the plate, and the fork. Like I said, depending on what state we're in, what laws in, and what laws you have around beer, wine, and liquor, this is pretty standard for us.
Okay. And final question. So new sign you're going to adhere to our current bylaws as far as hours of operation, as far as hours where the sign's lit, it's not lit, things like that.
Yep. Yes. The current, what you see, what happens with the pharmacy, the Wegmans, and the Market Cafe will be the same with the wine, liquor, and beer signage.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Going to give anyone out in the audience a chance if they want, while Kathy is looking up whether this is the first, second, or second variance for signage. Okay. Everybody? Just hold off. It would have been easier to find.
That file is probably a foot thick.
It probably is for sure.
The other thing I've discovered is that this, the whole project up there is actually under 2 different addresses. Believe it or not. It's under Southwest Cutoff, and then it's off of, there's another address. So, you know, the file is significantly thicker than anything else we have in town. And it is under 2 addresses.
Well, it was a major project. I still remember Marshall Gould coming to the Board of Selectmen meeting saying it's a 33,000 square foot of shopping experience. I was like, but it's still just grocery shopping. I mean, I'm sure it is.
It's how I ended up in Northborough.
I've
We had the first Wegmans. We were traveling here from Boston like every week.
never even been in one.
I grew up in upstate New York, so it's my grocery store of choice.
What part of upstate?
The Syracuse area.
Nice. Great.
Yeah.
A 315. So were you a 315er?
I still am a 315er. Yep. One of the older ones, the Syracuse one, we used to take my grandma weekly. Like, we knew all the heads of all the departments. My friend's dad was the butcher. Like,
That's awesome.
You know, it was like a neighborhood giant store. That's just how it was. So
That's awesome.
I grew up with A and P's, and my area code was 516 or 212, different part of New York.
Nice.
So what address are we making a decision on for this variance? Is it all one?
I think it's 9102 Shops Way.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we need to do something about our filing system. We should just be able to type in Wegmans variance.
Hey, friend, do you remember what year Wegmans started by any chance?
Well, it had to have been after 2011. I mean, like maybe 2013, did it get here by then? I know.
2011 it opened.
Yeah, in
Was it
Northborough for
2011?
2011.
October. It was 2 weeks before I gave birth to my first son. I came to the grand opening.
That's awesome.
All right,
That's what
folks,
did it.
it's not as easy as you think. I can tell you everything about Old Navy, and everything about the Loop 2, as we called it, which is the, where Applebee's and
Right.
but it's this file is, there's not just a Wegmans file, so it's merged into the entire shopping plaza. So we've got to extrapolate that out. So it's not something I can give to you right this second.
Okay,
Hopefully
well,
by the
thank
end of
you.
the meeting, but
Okay.
if it's that important, you might have to keep the hearing open, but otherwise, it's just
Okay. All right.
what I'm calling a simple variance, just to increase this. The sign has already been, granted, and they're changing out the lettering, which requires
Additional.
notification, and then they're enlarging it.
Okay. All right. So we can agree that the current signage is over the 100 square feet that would have been allowed. So it is likely that a variance was granted for that. This is at least an additional variance to add to the current signage from 57 feet to 75 feet.
Yeah, and from the existing drawings that I have, you can't determine from the drawings in this particular file, you can't determine what the size of the other signs are.
All right. Okay. All right. So it's the will of the board. Is it? I mean, Brad, you asked the question. I'll start with you. Do you feel it is significant enough to hold the hearing open for a month to get that information, or do you feel? I mean,
No, I think Wegmans has been in good faith this whole time. They're just changing their branding, changing, their signage. I have no issue moving forward with this hearing.
okay.
We can close it.
All right. I just want to give you first dibs since you brought it up. Dick, sorry.
I say I agree with Brad. I think we move forward and just add an additional 20 feet to the signage that's there.
Okay. All right. Well, so I will entertain a motion to close. Well, let me just double check since we've had conversation. I don't want anybody in the audience to think they're being slighted. So this is a public hearing. This is the last opportunity. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak on the issue to raise your hand. Okay. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the hearing.
I move that we close the hearing.
That's Mark.
Second.
Dick seconded. Roll call vote. All those in favor, Mark,
Aye.
Dick,
Aye.
Brad,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
and Fran, aye. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Bryan, for
Thank
your
you all.
patience with us on that.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is to consider the petition of David and Christina Mofford for a variance for the installation of an in-ground pool on the property located at 313 Brigham Street, map 93, parcel 29 in the residential C zoning district and the groundwater overlay district area 1. And Jim, if you could bring in, I believe the Moffords are in the audience.
Yeah, so I brought in all three. There are 3 instances of the same name.
Okay.
So I'm not too sure what's going on there, but we should find out in a moment.
All right. All right. When you are all in, if you could each state your name and your address, please.
I don't know what's going on.
Oh, we can hear you. Oh, here we go. Okay, we can see you. If you can unmute, there you go.
Yep,
Okay.
we got it.
There you go. All right, and are the other 2 in there? Okay. Okay.
We seem to be appearing multiple times. I don't know.
Okay, if you could just state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. Christina and David Mofford, 313 Brigham Street.
Okay, and if you can give a summary on what brings you to us this evening.
Sure. I just wanted to confirm that you all received a summary statement in addition to the application that we submitted.
Yes.
Okay. And so I can just go into a statement for this evening.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I will start by introducing myself and my family. I already did that part, but my name's Christy Mofford, and this is my husband, Dave. We have 2 children, Cameron, who is 6, and Kaylee, who is 4. We are here to apply for a zoning variance in order to install an in-ground swimming pool on our property at 313 Brigham Street, which we purchased as new construction in June 2019. Our lot was created in 2016 by dividing a larger lot into 2, resulting in 1 conforming and 1 non-conforming lot. Our property at 313 is non-conforming because it is below the required minimum size in its location in the Groundwater Overlay Protection District. The initial variance was granted to allow for this division and construction, but with conditions. The most significant of the conditions is that our lot needs 100% recharge of any rainfall runoff on our property. It is this condition that we are seeking relief from and requesting amendment of in order to install an in-ground pool which cannot be recharged because it is a body of water. Please allow me to present the following facts of our case which support our request for variance. Our lot is 56,367 square feet in size, which is significantly larger than the required minimum of 20,000 square feet in Zone Residential C, and also larger than almost all of the lots in our surrounding neighborhood. The only reason we have the 80,000 square foot minimum is because our property is a newly created lot located in Groundwater Protection Overlay District Area 1, which was established in 1986. With the proposed project, our house will remain residential. The use and character of the lot will not be changed. We do not wish to increase the size of our home or impact the existing septic system. An in-ground swimming pool will not have a negative impact on our surrounding neighbors or the public good at large. There will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. We have provided letters of support that we have gotten from 3 of our neighbors: the Patels at 307 Brigham Street, the Kemmets at 305 Brigham Street, and the Flemings at 102 Sunset Drive. These 3 homes either directly abut our property or will be able to see the proposed pool from our home or yard. Having an in-ground pool is similar to many of the properties which also have a pool and are in close proximity to our lot. In our section of the Groundwater Overlay District, Area 1, there are a total of 45 pools. Our lot size is larger than all but 2 of these properties, in most cases, significantly larger. At present, our only option for installing a swimming pool would be to enclose it or put a roof over it. This would stand out and be in significant disharmony with the other existing homes which have pools in our neighborhood. The proposed spot in our backyard, as shown on page 9 of our application, is an appropriate location for the use of an in-ground pool. In our application, we were asked to indicate whether our variance would substantially impact the public good or derogate the purpose of the zoning bylaws. We do not feel that the roughly 700 square feet associated with our swimming pool will have a substantial impact on this system. This is only 1.2% of our total property square footage. Furthermore, it is 0.5% of the original 313 Brigham Street property prior to the ZBA variance in 2016. This initial lot encompassed a total of 136,367 square feet. According to the bylaws, 15% of that property could be impervious surface without needing any recharge. When our property was split into 2, our lot at 313 lost that 15% allowance and now must be and currently is 100% recharged. The lot at 307, which is at the 80,000 square foot minimum, still gets the allotted 15%, which now only equates to 12,000 square feet. Combining their 12,000 square feet with our 700 square feet for a pool is roughly 9% of the original lot's total surface. This is well below the previous allowance of about 20,000 square feet. If the purpose of the groundwater protection overlay districting is to prevent an increase in impervious surface beyond that which existed prior to 1986, It is important to note this fact, that even with our swimming pool, the resulting net impervious surface is actually a much lower square footage than what was possible before the 2016 ZBA variance when the original lot was divided. We are committed to the requirement of 100% recharge with everything else on our property. We cannot realistically recharge a body of water. Lastly, we would like to emphasize the uniqueness of our circumstances. We purchased a property that requires 100% recharge. We have not been able to identify any other ZBA cases where this was a condition of a variance granted for a new non-conforming lot in the Groundwater Protection Overlay District. We believe that the following 3 ZBA cases where variances or special permits were granted are consistent with the aforementioned findings of fact in our case, and therefore support our request for relief. 2 Harris Ave, case 1609. This particular case most closely matches our circumstances and involves a total of 3 variances which were granted between 1990 and 2016, 2 to a builder and 1 to the subsequent owner. In December 1990, a builder requested a variance to allow the division of a tract of land into 2 separate lots, with less than the required sideline setback and less than the required size under groundwater protection provisions. This property is located in Area 2 of the Groundwater Protection Overlay District, where lots are required to be a minimum of 40,000 square feet. The original conforming lot was 40,025 square feet, but when divided, each of the 2 resulting non-conforming lots were only 20,000 square feet in size, which is only half of the required minimum. The initial larger lot had 2 structures on it in the form of cottages, as indicated on the plan of land from February 1991 in the Mass Registry of Deeds. In 1996, the same builder requested another variance for groundwater, along with a special permit in order to allow for the removal of the existing cottage and replacement with a newly constructed single-family home. The ZBA voted to approve, but with the condition that the new dwelling would not have more than 3 bedrooms. There was no mention of recharge requirements. Then in July 2016, the now owner requested to amend the 1996 variance. Despite the above mentioned condition, the house in actuality was built as a 4-bedroom single-family home with complementing septic system in 97. The present owner was now requesting that the ZBA amend the original condition to allow for a 4-bedroom home and also approve a further expansion with the construction of a 24 by 24 2-story addition. This 576 square feet is 2.9% of their total property size. From that case's findings of fact, quote, the requested amendment to ZBA case 9607 will not change the use of the single-family home, and therefore it will not cause substantial detriment to the public good, nor will it nullify or substantially derogate from the intent or purpose of the Northborough zoning bylaw. In addition, it will not adversely affect the neighborhood, and there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, end quote. There was still no mention of change to recharge requirements. 71 Pleasant Street, case 0407. A builder requested variance in order to split a current conforming lot into 2 separate non-conforming lots in Groundwater Protection Overlay District Area 2 for the purpose of building a new single-family home on each lot. In Area 2, the lot size is required to be 40,000 or more, and the 2 new non-conforming lots would be just over 25,000 square feet. From the case's finding of facts, quote, the single lot as currently constituted does contain more than 40,000 square feet. The 2 proposed lots would not each contain at least 40,000 square feet. It is important to note that the underlying zoning RC and general residence requires only 20,000 square feet and 15 square feet for a conforming lot. The only reason the 40,000 square feet area is applicable is due to this being Area 2 of the Groundwater Protection Overlay District. The size of each requested lot is over 25,000 square feet and is equal to or greater than the majority of the lots on Pleasant Street and John Edward Drive, which comprise the neighborhood of which the locus is a part, end quote. No conditions regarding recharge requirements were indicated. The last case is 2 Hawthorne Circle, case number 1321. The owner was requesting a special permit in order to install an in-ground pool less than the required distance from a side property line. This property is located not far from our home in Area 1 of the Groundwater Protection Overlay District. The property is 20,909 square feet in size, which is less than the required 80,000 square feet minimum in Area 1. From the case's findings of fact, quote, the subject property is non-conforming and the existing single-family home on the property is a non-conforming structure. The in-ground pool, as proposed, will be an extension of the non-conformity of the single-family home. The subject property is in a residential neighborhood with the use of pools on other lots throughout the neighborhood in close proximity to the subject property, and is an appropriate location for the proposed use of an in-ground pool. The addition of an in-ground pool will not change the existing residential use on the subject property, and therefore the proposed use is in substantial harmony with the purposes of the Northborough zoning bylaw. It is no different in character than the other residential lots in the surrounding neighborhood, many with in-ground pools, or in its effects on the neighborhood or on the property in the vicinity. The proposed non-conforming in-ground pool on the subject property will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing non-conforming single-family home on the subject property, end quote. In closing, we ask that you voice any specific questions or concerns that you may have regarding this proposal so that we may have the opportunity to address them here and now. We thank you in advance for your thoughtful consideration of our request for a variance.
Thank you very much. Okay. Start with questions or comments. Paul.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess I tried to do some research on this case going back to 2016, and obviously there were several groundwater meetings going back to that point, and then subsequent ZBA meetings in which, you know, one single family 80,000 square foot lot was approved, and then the second lot was also approved. I believe it's 56 and change thousand square feet. And so my understanding, at least going through the notes and the variances, is that there really is just one slight change I believe the applicant is asking for, and that is the 100% recharge of impervious cover, which obviously with a pool, you cannot recharge a pool, right?
No, you cannot. We've tried to figure it out.
Right. Or if you, I guess the only way you technically can is if you build a roof over a pool, which probably defeats the purpose of a pool. But, and so I guess my first question is to Fred, and what would be the reason, or what do you think would be a reason that the groundwater committee would request 100% recharge for a property? Because I'm trying to understand, and obviously it's 5 years ago, but why that was initially a condition put on this property.
Good evening. My recollection is that the reason that condition was proposed was because the lot that was being created was 30% smaller than the 80,000 square feet that was required. I don't believe that there have been very many instances of variances issued in the groundwater 1 area since 1986 when the bylaw was adopted. The ZBA has, to the best of my opinion, to the best of my knowledge, historically not granted variances in the groundwater area in terms of impervious cover very often. There are obviously a few, even fewer in area 1. And so the committee at the time recommending approval of that variance was to maintain the 100% recharge as part of the condition of approval of the variance because the lot was so much smaller than what's required in the bylaw.
Thank you.
Could I just make a comment?
Go ahead, Ms. Mofford.
Oh, sure. Sorry. I guess what I would ask is, my understanding is, when you compare area 1 to area 2, the differences are accounted for by the vast difference in minimum required square footage. So area 2 is 40,000 square feet and area 1 is 80,000 square feet. So I guess I'm still wondering why the cases we presented where they were decreased closer to 50%, it doesn't sound like they had to do a recharge. Or maybe Fred, you could comment on like how that was handled with those cases. I understand it's area 2, but again, that difference is accounted for in the requirements of square footage.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you just to hold on for a second, Fred, because I apologize. Paul, I think, had a follow-up for Fred.
Well, I mean, I guess my follow-up mainly is if we have 80,000 square foot lot, right? So the other lot, right? 15% of that could be impervious surface without recharge, right?
Yeah.
And so this 100% recharge was done because it was 30% less, right? So if you take 80,000 square feet times the 15%, you can have 12,000 square feet of coverage. 56,000 square feet times the 15%, it's 8,400, right? So there is a difference there, right, of say 3,600 square feet of space. But rather than making up for that difference, they're just saying it's 100%. Like they're not like, because I believe reading through the application, it's literally 700 square feet of a pool that they would like relief on, right? Because if they build you have a pool and then you have a 3,000 square foot patio or, stamped concrete, that area can be recharged into a dry well or something, right?
Yeah.
So it's literally just because it's the pool, the 700 square feet, and because this 100% stipulation is on there that they can't have that. Is that?
That's correct.
Okay. So I guess it's not really necessarily a full variance to do whatever. It's more of an adjustment to a variance from whenever it was, 2016, right? I believe that that's kind of what they're looking to do. But I guess that's all I have for right now.
Okay, thanks. Other members of the board? Mark, just make sure you unmute.
Fred, I have a question about the purpose of recharge. Is it to prevent runoff running off the property and spoiling other areas, or is it to, I guess, put the groundwater directly into the subsurface directly underneath the property? Am I making myself clear?
Yes, I believe that the second option is the one that's most pertinent. The goal behind the recharge is to put the water back into the ground so it stays within the aquifer that it's coming, that the lot's being built on, as opposed to if it runs off down the street and could go into a different aquifer or into a whole different drainage system. The idea is to recharge the water on the site where impervious cover is being created.
Yeah, okay, but in the case of a pool, the water wouldn't be running down the street. It'd be falling into the pool and just accumulating into the pool.
Well, depending on how the pool water is discharged,
right,
where does that water go? And that water is chlorinated, which in fact is a illicit discharge if it's not properly dechlorinated before it goes back into the ground. So there are some other risks associated with the water just going into the pool and being part of the operation of the pool.
Okay.
So just a question. So if they were putting in a 700-foot patio, they would be able to then build something so that the water on the patio could get back into the ground and not go down the street. But because it's not a patio, this is just another version of the same question that Mark just asked, right? It doesn't have that same ability of just spilling off the patio onto the rest of the grass.
Correct. There's no way to capture the water that falls over the pool area. It goes into the pool and mixes with the chlorinated water and
Okay, all right.
doesn't get recharged.
Can I just clarify just for?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
it's-
Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry.
One second. All
yeah,
right,
so-
Mr.
so-
Mofford, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Mofford.
Sorry, thank you. Yeah, so just to clarify, because we didn't bring it up in our comments here, but so currently we're at 100% recharge. And so our driveway is sloped in such a fashion that all of the water feeds into a drain and then is collected in a dry well where it can then seep back into the ground and replenish the aquifer. And same thing with the gutters. The gutters themselves actually go directly into the ground and are piped to that same dry well. So then they can go in. So any rainwater that would be from either the driveway or the house now is recharged through that dry well. And as you mentioned before, we're happy to continue that with the patio, if a shed, other kinds of structures that would be impervious with the pool. We're just requesting relief for the actual pool itself, the 700 or so square feet.
Okay, thank you again.
And one other comment, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to add too with the pool, as one can imagine, water evaporates. And so there is a point to be made, I suppose. So if rainwater is falling into the pool, it's then collected into the pool. And that means less that we would potentially take from our own well to fill the pool. Does that make sense?
Just for,
Just it's another piece of information to consider.
Thank you.
Okay, and this is, I muted myself and then started speaking. This is just totally random. And if it was a saltwater pool, would it matter versus a chlorine pool, Fred? Or it doesn't matter because it's still just not natural water?
Doesn't matter. If it's not,
Okay.
if they're not able to recharge the area that the pool occupies, then it doesn't matter. And the salt is just as hard to dissipate before it gets into the groundwater as chlorine.
All right, thank you. Just random. I'm sorry, Susie.
That you actually took my question.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any other questions or concerns? No, Dick. Unmute. You have to unmute, Dick. Sorry.
In the application on page 9, it shows a rectangular area around the pool. Is that going to be impervious also?
That would be a patio, and you can you can either slope, I believe, you can recharge a patio basically.
Okay, but it's all going to be impervious, but it's going to go into your recharge system?
Yeah, I mean, we may have to install like another dry well or whatever needs to happen, and we would work, I assume, with Fred and a designer on how to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Well, so my follow-up to Dick's question then is, was that patio factored into the 2%? Because that's still more impervious surface. It's more than 700 square feet of impervious surface that they're looking to create.
That is correct, but that we could 100% recharge. So that they were not seeking relief from the 100% recharge requirement for that. It's just for the pool. Does that make sense?
It would just, it would just have to factor into a decision.
Yeah, there'd have to be like an as-built that would show, all of that recharging and, that it's all been done.
Okay, thank you. Fred?
There's actually a few things that would have to go into the consideration if the board were to consider granting the variance. There, as I spoke to the Moffords in the way back a little bit about the whole pool and the 100% cover, I encouraged them to apply for what they wanted, and that the best they could do was to recharge everything but the pool. But because they weren't sure if the variance would be granted, they didn't feel the need to spend a lot of money on the design and the plan. And so none of that was submitted, and we would somehow need to factor all of that into an approval or continue the hearing, get that information, and then grant the variance if the board chooses to do so. So,
thank you, Fred.
but it could be done.
Okay, thank you. Paul, did you have your hand again?
Actually, I think, well, I guess my question was, so I have this picture
What
here,
page? What page?
page 8. And it just shows like where the plan is close to the lot line. And I guess my question was that we're not going to have to deal with a dimensional variance at some point down the road, and that it would be fit in to your property appropriately.
Yes, our plan would be to hug that lot line as far as possible, but I think it's 15 feet away from the lot line is where we can go. So we would go, we would get it, surveyed and put it as close as we can get it, but without needing, another variance or anything like that.
Thank you. Okay. Any additional questions, concerns from staff?
I just want to make sure that you got the letter sent to you on behalf of the Groundwater Advisory Committee. They did not recommend approval of the variance, but
Yes.
were sympathetic to the cause, but felt as though a second variance on the same property wasn't really warranted.
Right. Thank you, Fred. And everyone did get that. Okay. All right. While members of the board are pondering additional questions, this is a public hearing, so if anyone in the audience has any questions or concerns or would like to speak, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized to speak. Oh, okay. I am bringing in Jason Perot. If you can state your name again and address, please.
Hello, Jason Perot, member of the Board of Selectmen and the Selectmen's representative on the Groundwater Advisory Committee. I did just want to echo Fred's last statement. When the applicants were before the Groundwater Advisory Committee, I believe that by and large, the committee was sympathetic to their concern. I think the committee's stance fundamentally was that when the prior variance was granted to subdivide and create this smaller lot, at that time they had apparently imposed this 100% recharge condition, and the Groundwater Advisory Committee was reluctant to recommend approval given that circumstance. Absent that particular condition, I don't think Groundwater Advisory Committee had any other concern with respect to this proposal. So I just wanted to offer that expanded clarification. Thank you
very much. Thank you. Okay. Just make sure anyone else in the audience. Okay. Seeing none.
Paul has
Paul.
something.
Yep.
So I guess, and this is probably my inexperience, how typical is 100% recharge?
That would be a question, I guess, for Fred.
Like, I mean, is it just, I tried looking back at other groundwater cases and I mean, I couldn't find one, but.
I don't believe it's typical, but neither are variances on area requirements in a groundwater district. So specifically the area 1. In this case, the well that the town's trying to protect is directly across the street from their property.
Okay. And then I guess another question is, like what sort of mediation for, say, pool contamination can be taken by someone who owns a pool to limit the exposure to the groundwater from chlorine type of chemicals? Like, is there something that they can put in to help clean some of the water before it does?
I'm not a pool expert, but I do have a pool. Some pool filters come with a cartridge type system where they don't backwash onto the property. They just take the cartridge out and clean it manually and put it back in. Sometimes that limits it. Beyond that, I don't have much knowledge in how pools can or can't be regulated. All I can tell you is that our stormwater bylaw requires a chlorine discharge into a town way or recharge system or the drainage system, an illicit discharge unless there is 0 parts per million of chlorine detected in that water. And sometimes we have to go and stop residents from lowering the water in their pool until the chlorine has been dissipated, which generally only takes about a week of not adding any chlorine, which is fine in the spring and the fall, but not so hot in the summertime. So it's a tricky thing to keep track of. But generally, people are lowering it in the spring when they're getting ready to start it up, or in the fall when they're packaging it up for the winter, and it's not so much of an issue. So we've only had 1 or 2 cases in town where people are discharging water out into the town's drainage system.
Okay, and then just last question. Sorry, Fred. Is the closest place that they could discharge the street for this particular property? When you say like, so if they want to empty their pool water, and you said they have to empty it into a town drain?
In their case, as the Moffords indicated, the previous condition of 100% recharge carries with it a swale along the driveway. So any water that gets discharged to the driveway ultimately goes into that swale and then into a recharge system that's on their property. So unless they were to take the hose all the way out to the street and connect it onto the surface water in Brigham Street, shouldn't leave the property.
Or they just don't chlorinate their water for a certain period of time.
Right.
And then they can.
If they're looking to discharge water from their property, they would need to make sure that there's no more chlorine in the pool, and then it's not a violation. It's not a illicit discharge.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
And Susie.
The natives were getting restless. I had to mute myself here. So when we were talking about the 100%, the recharging and how it would have to be enclosed with a roof over it, is there anything temporary that could be done, or even something that could be put over for rain? Or is it would have to be an indoor pool? I tried Googling it, and it was like how to recharge a pool filter, and and I'm like, no, that's not what I'm talking about.
I suggested that that's the only way it could be done, was the water would have to be captured somehow and then put off into the drainage system that could then be recharged into the ground. I believe the Moffords looked into a retractable cover for the pool that was electronically or electrically operated. Mm-hmm. But if it's within the confines of the pool and it rains, the water still goes into the pool and it doesn't actually get recharged. So the only way would be if something extended over the pool, and mm-hmm. it could be a structure with no sides. It doesn't have to have anything but a roof, but it really does defeat the purpose of having a pool, or it becomes quite an additional expense that, again, is not so desirable.
Right. I was thinking of like those patio things that, that come out, the overhangs, the cloth ones, like something that could be extended when it rained, or, just different things.
Well, it becomes, I guess it becomes difficult to make sure it's over every time it rains, mm-hmm. and it becomes maybe an enforcement issue. I think the simplest thing is either a yes or no on their variance. I don't know what else there are for options. I know that the Moffords looked at a few options before applying for the variance, and I believe they came up with the fact that it's either this way or they can't do the pool that they want to. So I don't know if there are any other options.
Can I respond to that as well?
Ms. Mofford?
Yeah, so we did look, as Fred mentioned, into the retractable covers. Actually, when I had consulted with Cornerstone Engineering, Vito Kalana had suggested that as a proposed option, because I guess another town, Waltham or something, he had done an as-built for, and they were willing to accept the retractable cover because it had a pump on top of it that would pump the rainwater that fell onto it and went into dry well. And we did look into like probably more what you're referring to, which is like these huge structures that like slide, and I mean, they're monstrosities, and we were quoted $50,000 because of the fact that we live in New England. It would have to be able to hold the snow in order to hold that. If I may, I also wanted to comment on the 0% recharge, and someone had asked, if that's been like how that was determined. And I have spent a healthy amount of time on the Mass Registry of Deeds from 2008 to 2012. I searched all decisions that were made in the town of Northborough, and I did not discover any variance where 100% recharge was required. And of course, I looked at all the cases that were on the town's website from 2012 to present. And as I mentioned in my statement, the two cases that we were able to come up with were Area 2, and they were decreased by 50% with no 100% recharge. So we are also, it's unclear to us how the number of the 0% was identified. When I've read the meeting minutes for the Groundwater Advisory Committee meeting in 2016, it sounds like it was a number that was thrown out there. And I'm not sure if there was a process or a formula. So I'm just adding that comment as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm gonna just jump back into the audience one more time. Seeing no one. Does anyone else have any questions or concerns? Okay, if not, do I hear a motion?
I move that we close the hearing.
Mark?
Second.
That was Paul seconding. Okay, on a roll call, Mark?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Brad?
Aye.
Dick? Oh, unmute. Sorry.
Aye.
And Fran, aye. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Mofford. We'll be discussing and coming to a decision later this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. It is on to the third application is to consider the petition of R.J. Devereaux Corporation for a variance for an industrial use on the property located at 200 Bartlett Street, map 66, parcel 7 in the industrial zoning district and the groundwater overlay district areas 1 and 3. And who do we have for this project? If you could say your names and your relationship and or address to this project.
Members of the board, my name is Paula Devereaux. I'm an attorney at Pierce Atwood in Boston, and I'm here representing the R.J. Devereaux Corp., which is a family business that was started by my uncle. My father worked there, and now it's owned by my brother. There are a bunch of people with me today, and Dario Damare, who's the project architect, Rick Gates, who's the project person in charge of this for R.J. Devereaux Corp., and Vita Colonna, who's the project engineer. I'd like to start out by explaining what we're before you for. We're before you for a variance for a particular use that the R.J. Devereaux Corp. Wants to make of this property. Devereaux Corp. Has a purchase and sale agreement with the current owners of the property to buy the property, but it's conditioned on getting the approvals that Devereaux Corp. Needs to operate its business at the property. The variance is for automotive repair, which is prohibited use in the groundwater district, and this property is part in the groundwater 1 district and part in the groundwater 3. This, as a contractor's yard, the main use will be as a contractor's yard, and that use requires a special permit from the planning board. But before we can go to the planning board to get the special permit for the contractor's use, because automotive repair is an accessory use to that, and it's prohibited, we are before you for the variance. This is a property that has been vacant for many years. We believe that the work that we're going to be doing at the property will actually be much better for the groundwater district, because currently right now there's not a whole lot that gets treated on the property. And the Devereaux Corp. Will be using the property, Currently, Lammy Automotive is in the property, and Lammy is in the Groundwater 1 district and has received both a variance from this board and a special permit from the planning board back in 2007, I think, or 2008, for its use of the property. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Dario. I don't know if you can share the plans, but so we can see just a plan of the property so that the board can understand how it's going to be used.
Thank you, Attorney Devereaux. And if you could just state your name for the record, please.
Okay, Dario DeMar, 318 Main Street, Northborough. That's our office. And I've got Greg Kishko with me here in case he speaks up because he's got all the brains. Well, thank you guys for taking the time. And I think as Paula had stated, what can you see the cursor?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so what we're looking at is using all of the existing buildings that are here. We're going to renovate and upgrade what would be the administrative building and what we're calling the maintenance building. We're going to, up where the cursor is, pull this paving back farther to green up our front lawn, and then add some vegetation here, mostly conifers, to just kind of screen the parking. We would be adding conifers at the other existing entrance as well. This entrance would actually change a little bit because we wanted to make sure when we did look into the site, we'd be able to plant even more plants just to make it look a little nicer. But the whole point of this meeting, I guess, is to talk about the groundwater overlay district variance, where we have a use that was non-conforming, and it's really non-conforming. You'll see a big red line here in the groundwater overlay district 1. On the other side, we have the groundwater overlay district 3. In groundwater overlay district 1, Lammy's Automotive is a pre-existing non-conforming use, which is the auto repair. That we can't change and aren't going to change because they would just continue to operate. I'll just say for a while, they're a tenant at will. And we would then take the 2 larger buildings, and we do want to fix them up to make them nicer than what they look like now. There was mention of, it was really I just lost it, an infiltration system here about 30 years ago where they did have contaminants. And as far as the groundwater overlay district is concerned, that's obviously a big deal. It's actually a big deal anywhere. That was cleaned, remediated, and the owners of the chipboard manufacturing plant actually got fined, I think, 20 years ago for not maintaining it. But now there are wells here that, by the rules of the DEP, the Devereaux, if they buy the property, the good news for us is if they buy it and occupy it, which is their intent, they're obligated to maintain the wells as they are now. So then at least we've got someone looking at them who's living on site. They're also obviously responsible for Lammy Automotive as well. So if there was something there, there's someone on site to kind of keep an eye on them, which is a good thing for us. Our intent, where it says maintenance, is to have any and all of our hazardous waste here. And it's really more oils. It's no different than, it's not maintenance as our core business as Lammy's Automotive is. Our core business is ours being Devereaux's, just installing and repairing gas lines in this area of Massachusetts. And their operating procedures are such that most of the time they're not here, the vehicles that would be being maintained. And they would only maintain their own fleet. And I think they've got 27 total vehicles. A lot of those, if the person lives in Milton and they're going to a job in Shrewsbury, they won't even stop here. And if they need to change their oil, they may change it on their own. Or if they have time, they could stop here and do their oil change. They don't do heavy maintenance. They're not changing transmissions or engines. And 75% of their maintenance is for just a one piston. It's like a weed whacker or a broom or what we would see as a lawnmower. That's what they're maintaining primarily here. But they do have their trucks come in. They'll change the oil or put in new windshield wiper fluid. So we put a list of all of the chemicals and MSDS sheets, and the total gallons of everything stored in the entire building is about 700 gallons. My house, I have what's called twin 330s for my oil. So I have 660 gallons of the same waste that they have. Mine isn't spill contained, theirs will be. But I just want to put it in perspective that these guys would have kind of what a house would have in it with respect to oils, because they're gas heated for one. So that gets rid of all the oil for heating. They would have several 55-gallon drums of different oil types, plus their waste oil goes in the drum, and then all the drums are stored on spill containment containers, which we can show you and present. You have a list of everything all the way down to the bathroom cleaners and where they're stored as well in certain cans. But all that's in this building, which is outside the Groundwater Overlay District 1, which was, we wouldn't have to be here if we didn't have half our site in the one district. But since we do, our intent was to locate everything here. We've got the 4 different store yards in the back for gravel and sand. One of the questions that came up, deal with it very simply, is what's called spoils. And then of course, everybody is alarmed by that word. As their standard operating procedure, when Devereaux's out putting in a gas line, there's a person watching when there's digging going on. And the way they dig, which is another one of the things that came up, they dig with these vacuum trucks that actually squirt water and suck up the dirt, because a shovel hitting a metal pipe with gas in it doesn't work real well. That's where you get the big explosion. So their way of digging is they kind of spray water, suck it out, it goes into the truck. And if they hit any hazardous waste, anything, there's a person there that looks, actually sees and smells when the digging's going on. If they hit something, Devereaux gets on the phone, they call the gas company or whoever they're working for, and all hazardous waste removal is done by other parties. These guys are not allowed to touch it, both by their own rules, by their employees' rules, and by the union rules. So they can't and won't bring anything back by their standard operating procedures, which should put you at peace that when we say spoils, it's just dirt with water and maybe big rocks. And what they do is they pour that dirt through a screen to get rid of the big rocks, because they can't fill a hole in with big rocks, because a big rock could break a gas line. And then that's carted away. Another thing about how they operate, because there were a lot of questions about it. One good thing, and again, it's within their own internal rules and the union rules, they only operate 8 hours a day. If they go over by 15 minutes, they have to pay for a whole shift of people for a whole 8-hour shift. So they're only here if someone's an early bird, 7 o'clock, but 7:30 to 4, and that's it. It's really an 8-hour day operation. They don't work at night. Is it possible for a vehicle to come here at night? yes, if a gas line blew up nearby and somehow they were needed, they could call them and they would go help fix the gas line. But other than that, it's a 99.9% chance there's no one here after working hours. Another question came up with tractor trailers because of all the nightmares we've had down Bartlett. Is it possible for a tractor trailer to come here? Yes. Do they own any? No. We tried to find the frequency of tractor trailers coming here. It's no different than where I work here above Tavern in the Square. They would have a tractor trailer. It could actually go to either building. The biggest thing they drop off is a pallet full of water for their people to drink because they order it in a pallet, and sometimes the tractor trailer will drop it off. And occasionally some supplies, whether it's pipes or some personal protective equipment. If they buy bulk, it'll come on a skid. And that's the only thing in their business that would arrive on a tractor trailer, no different than the neighborhood tavern, receiving a pallet full of beer for the tavern itself. So that's kind of how they operate, because we're so just under shock because of everything that happened down the road from us, and rightfully so, with hundreds and hundreds of tractor trailers going up and down and through the neighborhoods. This is kind of the opposite of that, where at any given point during the day, you may have 4 or 6 people total on site. Because if these guys are on site, it means they're not working. And if they're not working, the Devereaux aren't making money. So just out of pure greed, they're off the site. But is it possible they may have a dozen people to come up and train, which is what the admin building is for? Absolutely. And this building is just that. It's purely training. They'll show them new techniques in welding, new techniques in digging. They'll do videos. They do tests, show them about safety. And so they'll come in here and give them just prototype videos. And there's a little bit of administrative office in this building. I believe there would be at any given point in time 2 or 3 people. And it's mostly their maintenance people. There's going to be 2 offices and a conference/lunchroom for them to take breaks. I'm just trying to think of all the big issues that deal with groundwater. And the entire site will be curbed, even though there's nothing out in the yards that would be deemed hazardous, other than a vehicle, which would be no different than a car. I guess a car could have an oil leak, and so could one of their trucks, but they're not handling any contaminants at all in their operating procedures. The only thing that would be a negative would be the oils and, a brake fluid or windshield wiper fluid, but that's all accounted for when I was saying 700 to 800 gallons. That includes all that stuff, and they're all contained in spill containment, either cabinets or pallets. Is that everything, Greg?
Yeah, and we're gonna touch the no touch.
Yeah, and another thing, and it was just to be conservative on it. You can see the lines out here. The green is the wetlands. The blue is the no touch. And then the next one this is the no building. You can't have a building on that, but you could actually build beyond it with paving. In all cases, we didn't even pave beyond the building line. We just held everything back to be more conservative, to protect the groundwater and nature. We've got 2 infiltration systems, one underground here and one in the back. But for the most part, it would be greener today than it is today once they move in, because you'd actually have people looking at the monitoring wells and people paying attention to Lammy's, because the owners of the site is responsible more than Lammy. And not that they're doing anything, but if I own it, I'm going to be making sure they don't. Are there questions?
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Demari. So I just want, and that was a lot of information. Some of it is relevant to the variance. A lot of it is going to be if you move forward with the special permit piece. So our responsibility tonight is to look at currently Lamy Automotive has a variance for automotive use in groundwater 1. You're seeking a variance for automotive repairs in groundwater 3.
Right.
And comparing that to Lamy's, they're relatively similar, right? We're talking about auto repairs of vehicles of the Devereaux company.
I would say the only exception I would make to that is we would probably do as much repairs in a year that they would do in a day. So similar, yes, this is a very ancillary function to the total operations of what Devereaux does. So it's a fraction, and a really big fraction, of what Lamy does. If they have 27 vehicles, they change the oil twice a year, that's 54. Maybe Lamy would do that many cars. Maybe it's a week. I might have exaggerated that, but that's not our business, is the point.
Okay, thank you.
Heavy maintenance.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask members of the board if they have questions, but you're on a reduced screen because we're sharing the screen, but I'd like to leave it up there. So just give me a second to, okay, I see Paul. Excellent. Paul.
Hey, Fred. So I think just kind of piggybacking off of your point, right? So this property exists in both groundwater 1 and groundwater 3. And the part that we're looking at is for the automotive repair, right? Which is not allowed in groundwater 1 without a variance, but is allowed in groundwater 3, right? But they've said, or at least based on the presentation, that their automotive repair is only going to exist in groundwater 3, right? So I guess part of my original question is, if we restrict this use variance to only groundwater 3, that would coexist with the current presentation.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And the only reason we're here, Paul, is because.
All right, that's Mr. DeMar. Sorry, I'm doing it for the minutes. Go ahead, Mr. DeMar.
And the only reason we're here is because the land has both 1 and 3 in it, which is why we put everything in 3, just to be safer.
Okay. I guess then, could you just explain a little bit further all the activities that you expect to occur within the Devereaux Administrative Building, and then all the activities you expect to occur within the Devereaux Maintenance Building? And then I have one more follow-up.
Okay, and I think Rick here? Yeah, Rick can go through that. He's the guy that does this every day, and he's got all the scars. And I think to get into those details, I'll let him talk about it. I know a lot about it, but he knows, I'll say, everything as far as I can see.
And Rick, if you could give your full name and relation to the project.
My name is Richard Gates. I am a supervisor for RJ Devereaux Corporation. I'm a project manager for this little project that's going on. Really been in the industry for well over 40 years, been working either as a sub or as an employee for Devereaux for close to 40 years. So both Paula and Mario have a pretty good sense of what we do, but I'll smooth the corners out for you a little bit so you understand it. So the administrative building, that is going to be training, computer training, hands-on training, safety training, first aid, that kind of thing. There is going to be some stock materials in the back of the building. There is no chemicals involved. They're all fittings that we use out in the field to put plastic pipe together and steel pipe together. So there's nothing that's going to interrupt the groundwater 1 at all. We're going to have a fork truck to take palletized items and store them in that last 20% of that building. There is a loading dock that exists on the building, which is good for us. So when we have a delivery, we can back right up to that and unload that way, or we come in a side door, which is a side overhead door. We can do that as well. So we're not going to be doing any kind of oil changes, anything disruptive to groundwater 1 on the administrative side or anywhere in the groundwater 1 district. We really don't have the need for that. In the maintenance facility, we install natural gas lines for National Grid and for Eversource. And this facility will be basically going to be a support yard for all the crews. We have currently 24 crews in the area. So basically, all the small equipment they use, which ranges from 7 to, let's say, 11, sometimes 12 engine drives, gas engine drive pieces of equipment, from generators to ground pounders to plate whackers and power brooms and the like. In addition to that, there are the equipment that puts the plastic pipe together. All of that needs to get maintenance periodically. And that is primarily what's going to be taken care of in this maintenance building. Currently, we do not have a maintenance facility. What we have in Shrewsbury is woefully inadequate. It's terrible to work out of. The guys don't have shelter. If they change oil or change the brakes on a pickup truck, which doesn't happen very often, they're out in the elements. So we have to go in and around the rain, that kind of thing. So in regards to the amount that we're going to be working on the vehicles, the runners vehicles, which are F550s and F350 dual wheel flatbeds, supervisors trucks, which are pickup trucks. We have a couple of utility bodies for maintenance workers, the 2 maintenance workers, and a couple of the welders. They're all the small trucks. They're not the big 18-wheelers that, we've all heard the nightmares people have gone through. So they're all smaller vehicles. And like Demario led to, the way the company works currently is, since we don't have facilities to take care of anything, and this would be the first in this area, all the maintenance is done off-site. A good majority of it. We don't do anything heavy. We don't want to. It doesn't make sense for us to do that. So everything that's going to be done in there is going to be all light service. And I don't really want to train mechanics and equipment to start getting into transmissions and rear ends. It just does not make sense. Monetarily, there's no reason for it. And basically, if you want to think about it, we're going to be a bit of a jiffy. Come in, go through it, make sure it'll pass inspection. When a supervisor is there to be in a meeting, be part of training, or if he has some time to do paperwork, we may change the oil, change tires on those vehicles. And even though there's, I believe it was 27 that I've counted, realistically, maybe about 15 of them will be in the yard on a regular basis that would get taken care of in that regard. So when it really comes down to it, this is a support yard. The only thing that I would say that you could equate to a contractor's yard, which is what everyone sees because you have to file under a certain name, is you're going to see the materials. And again, that still is support because we are restricted to 8 hours in the field. And that's due to the contract with the union and the gas company. So we can't work any more than 8 hours. So we can't take a truck from Worcester, drive it all the way to this yard to pick up material to drive all the way back to Worcester. We don't have enough time to do that and make money. So they're going to stop off at where we've been doing it for the last 40 years and 50 years. And that's in Shrewsbury at a gravel facility out there. The same thing with our crews down in Milton and all around. Currently only about 4 crews that we would potentially support with some of the material in there. So therefore, that material truly is just to support a just in case factor. Truck breaks down, someone's close and it would be quicker and we might be able to put in a little more footage, make a little more money. We might come get material or drop off material. All that material is going to be covered and drained properly. I've asked Vito and Dario to, for lack of better terms, to over-engineer this. We intend on being here for a long time. We're not based out of Arkansas. We're not based out of Atlanta. You're looking at the person that's going to answer the questions when the police chief, fire chief, a building inspector has an issue. I'm the one going to answer the questions. I'm the one that's going to answer the phone. We're going to do this right because we're going to be here a long time. The owner, that's how he runs this company. He wants it done correctly. And I'm sure you've heard this numerous times from others. But we're a family-owned business, and there's multiple family members in through the administrative end of things. And I can tell you that we're going to do whatever we can do to make sure that we can basically run the company more efficiently. Because right now it is not run efficiently, and that's basically what I was brought in to do, is to take over and enacted right now a CMMS, which is a cloud-based maintenance management system. We're tracking all our equipment, so I know when it breaks instead of going buying a new one, which is what happens far too often. Now we're repairing it. And once we get on top of that and train our people not to, when we can bring them in the administrative building and teach them how to not, beat the crap out of everything, then everything will last a little longer. And quite frankly, the amount of traffic going in and out was going to decrease because of that. And that's really the crux of what this facility is for. You're not going to be seeing tractor trailers with excavators and et cetera, big diggers and that kind of thing coming in and out of there. We just don't do that. All the crews out in the field are subcontracted. All the equipment out in the field is subcontracted. And that's because, generally speaking, in November, December is when the gas company starts taking away work from us because of the weather. And they don't want us digging in the streets, plates in the street, that kind of thing. And until March, it's a very slow period for us. So we were able to lay off people, which includes subcontractors. So it doesn't cost us anything. It's double-edged sword because we hope that they come back in the spring, but that's the game we play and have to do it. And that's how we've been doing our business is that way. So that's basically how we go about our operations. First thing in the morning, you're going to see 7 to 10 vehicles come in, gather stock, and they're going to disappear. There's going to be times when there's virtually very little activity in the yard. Between November and March, that slow time is when you're going to see trailers. We use landscape type trailers to hold all the small equipment, those lawnmower size equipment, and the stock that they use out in the street. Some crews have one trailer, one large trailer, some have two. Those trailers will be parked in the yard. There's no transmissions, there's no engines, there's nothing to leak out of them. That's what's going to be parked in the yard. So there's really very, very little when it comes to, in my mind, issues when it comes to that compared to, and I don't want to throw Lamey under the bus, but compared to what he's doing, we're minimal compared to what he's doing. And just so everyone might be listening at home, we're not kicking Lamey out. Kevin's going to stay as long as he wants to. I know he's a valuable asset to the community. He's not going anywhere. We're not even raising his rent. He can stay there. We're going to work with him. I'm going to redo the drainage in and around his property, make it better, the access in there better. He can stay as long as he wants. And if and when he does leave, and I'm sure this will come up as a question, that building more than likely is going to end up where the stock is going to end up, or administrative. I have more than enough room in the maintenance building to take care of 250 small engines in that maintenance building.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Gates. Paul, you had follow-up?
Yeah. Just so the maintenance building is where all of your auto repair work is going to take place. It's where all the chemicals are going to be. Will there be hydraulic lifts in the maintenance building?
We intend on doing is they make now these mobile lifts. I don't know if you've seen them. They're electric and they're run by a computer. They're actually 4 posts that you roll around, and they pick up a variety of different vehicles. And they do have some hydraulics within them, pistons, obviously, to raise the vehicles up, but they're all self-contained. But there's just going to be, quite frankly, all we need is one. We don't really pick up anything very often. I bet half the time my maintenance guys are just going to slide underneath the truck to change the oil. Take more time to put it up in the air than it will be to drop the oil out of it. There's nothing much to them. And all the trucks are tall. They're all 4-wheel drive. So let's slide right underneath there. They'll just be happy to have a shelter and a concrete floor rather than a dirt floor that they're working on right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, other members of the board? Just rolling back and forth. Okay, let me go to staff then. Bob, have anything to add and or question?
I really don't have anything to add. It's pretty complete. I don't have anything to add.
Right. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I just want to make sure. Okay, so I do want to, before I open it up, Fred, if you want to go to the groundwater advisory, they have quite a list of conditions that they're concerned with. If you could just address those.
Sure, thank you. Because it's a use variance, The committee did vote 4 in favor and 1 opposed to granting the use, the recommending approval of the use variance, but wanted to specify some conditions so that it wasn't just a complete carte blanche, you can do whatever you need to in automotive repair in this section. The committee asked me to put together a letter, and I did indicate in the first condition that they should submit the location, the type of all the storage containers or the various materials that they are going to have on site. One of the questions that I had during the groundwater meeting was I wasn't sure if the list that came with the application was complete. I heard Dario say tonight that there's about 700 gallons, which is about what was listed on the application. I wanted to give them an opportunity to expand because I only saw spoils there. I didn't see brake fluids or antifreeze or some other materials that might be used on site. And I wanted to make sure that that was, if the list that came with the application is complete and the board decides to grant the variance, that list should be made. The variance should limit their application to what's in that list. If it's not, then we need to get that list somehow and put some containment on it, on the amount of chemicals and how they're stored. The committee was happy to hear that all the chemicals would be stored within the maintenance building, which is in the groundwater 3 area, and recommended that that also be a condition. One of the items that came up during the groundwater meeting was in the application, they indicated they were going to be responsible for making sure that any ongoing monitoring and maintenance on the groundwater quality issues on that site were taken care of. They would be their responsibility. And the groundwater committee thought that the status report from a licensed site professional on what is left to be done out there, what's been done, any and all contamination that's been on the site should be evaluated and a report be submitted so that we can get a handle on if there is anything outstanding. I believe there may not be anything outstanding anymore, that the DEP may have closed out that issue, but we wanted to see a report from a licensed site professional kind of verifying all that because the records are a little bit old and not all complete here at the town hall. We talked about the maintenance building having all the chemicals and storage within that building. The committee also wanted to have the variance issued for this applicant only. Not quite sure about the legal ramifications of that, if we can do that with a variance or not, but we wanted to narrowly approve the variance if it's done so that it is only applicable for this user. And if someone else comes along, they would have to tell us what they're going to have. The next couple of conditions in my letter are basically a restatement of what's in the zoning bylaw in terms of requirements for a special permit in a groundwater 3 area. The list, the first one, number 5, is really what's required for an application to be submitted for that special permit, what's included, the list of chemicals, description of the potentially toxic or hazardous materials, MSDS sheets, all of that information, some of which came in. And like I said before, if that list isn't complete, I want to give them an opportunity to tell us everything that they're going to have. And I'm seeing stuff on the screen that I don't recall seeing in the application. So I'm guessing that there's more. Number 6 talks about the requirements of the drainage system and the imperviousness and water quality issues. If the variance is granted, we want to make sure that this is still submitted. It's a little bit more extensive. That's what's just required for a site plan approval. And I want to make sure that this is what they're going for. It is what we talked about at the groundwater committee, a fully developed current drainage system in conformance with all local rules and regulations, as well as the state and federal regulations. But again, if the variance is granted and it's not specified, there's an opportunity for something less to be installed. And we wanted to make sure that was clear. And the last condition is that it's the other section in the zoning bylaw that talks about a special permit in industrial and commercial uses and the no on-site disposal of any material. Again, the applicant has indicated that they don't plan to have any processes that would discharge anything to the ground. There are limits on the size of the septic system. It's a pretty good sized lot. I don't imagine they'll have any problems meeting those requirements, but they are stated in the letter because we don't want to see a variance get granted without limits.
Thank you, Fred. Attorney Devereaux.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to indicate that we were before the Groundwater Advisory Committee, and we assured them at that committee hearing that we intend to go back to the Groundwater Advisory Committee to answer some of these questions. As you'll see, there's additional information about the chemicals. And before we go to the planning board in order to get the planning board special permit, if this board grants the variance. So I just wanted to confirm that we fully intend to go back to the Groundwater Advisory Committee prior to going to the planning board.
Thank you. Speaking of the Groundwater Advisory, we did receive a letter, an email from, I assume it's a resident, I don't have her address, from Janine Callahan, that was shared with the Groundwater Advisory Committee prior to their meeting, and then she was forwarding it on to us as well. I'm going to assume that the questions were reviewed and discussed at Groundwater, and some of them are addressed in the recommendations. I do have a question, though, that comes up in this, and I noticed in the application that there is going to be a raising of a building in Groundwater 1. And so when a building is raised and rebuilt, are there soil testings required and or recommended, Fred, on the soil?
I guess it depends on what was going on inside the building. Typically, the applicant's financial institution requires a clean 21E before they'll give funding and expect that would be done in accordance with this site.
Okay, and I just want to say that Mr. DeMar just raised his hands and nothing is being raised, but I'm just reading it out of the narrative.
Right, but we're not raising a building is the whole point. We're just gonna redo the facade and upgrade materials. We're not increasing the footprint at all.
Okay, all right. So on page 2 of the narrative, the applicant proposes to raise a small existing building. So I just need clarification then.
We're renovating, not raising. I mean, we're just.
No.
Okay, so, all right, time out because we're
Okay.
the note taker. Attorney Devereaux.
Thank you. There is a small building that's going to be demolished that it's in pretty rough shape right now. Rick, do you want to explain that a little bit?
And if you could put up the site again for us, please. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Gates.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, right now there's a small storage building. It's, according to Kevin Lamy, there's nothing in it. It's right in the middle of where one of the islands would be going on the site. I don't know if it's depicted on there, but it's a very small building, does not have a basement to it, has no electricity in it. Yeah, the existing, yep, that one right there. Doesn't have any electricity to it, has no facilities to it at all. It's just a little storage facility. They might have, I think might have kept like a backhoe or a piece of equipment in there for the snow or something, because it's really nondescript and it's really in the way for us. We don't really need it. We don't want to rebuild it. We don't need it. We've got more than enough room to do what we have to do for the next couple decades, quite frankly.
Thank you very much. Okay.
You're welcome.
Other members of the board. Just give me 1 second to scroll through. Paul.
Yes. I guess this is just in reference to what number 4 on the groundwater committee letter, where the use variance shall be issued to this applicant only. So I don't think that that's necessarily allowed for variances. So typically variances can have certain conditions to it, but it being connected to an owner that's requesting the variance is not one of them. We could potentially request a time frame for a use variance, because as you know, if we do grant this use variance, it is good in perpetuity, right? But you can, by state statute, put a time frame on the length of the use variance. So if you say that there's a 10-year period that you can use a piece of land for, you know, what they're coming in front of us for, after 10 years, they would need to almost reapply to have that variance done over. And then, so that was just for number 4. And then I think for number 5, so Fred, is my understanding in reading this letter that the Groundwater Advisory Committee did not have a complete list of all chemicals, pesticides, fuels, and other potentially toxic and hazardous materials to be stored on site, and then they did not have a description of the potential toxic or hazardous waste or any evidence of approval? So that was just like, these are conditions that like still have not been provided to groundwater for them to review?
What the application included was a list of chemicals. And when I reviewed the list, it occurred to me that there may be more items that they would need based upon the way they describe their use. And so I wanted to give them an opportunity to expand that list. And the committee was comfortable with recommending approval with the other conditions that were already discussed, in that mainly being that everything was going to be house, all chemicals and their storage containment would be in the groundwater 3 area in the maintenance building. And so they wanted to make sure a complete list was submitted in the future, and then they would have a chance to review it and make recommendations or work with the applicant to modify his plan to make sure the containment was all there when the site plan was going forward. But because that it wasn't clear when the application was made that everything was going to be in the maintenance building, and that was specified at the meeting, they felt pretty comfortable recommending approval. In terms of condition number 4, where it talks about the variance should be issued to this applicant only, it may be that if the condition that all toxic or hazardous material or anything that's on site is stored within the maintenance building and not within the groundwater area 1, that may be enough to limit it to anybody else coming in there and having any toxic or hazardous materials in the groundwater area 1 beyond what's allowed in Mr. Lamey's building or the building that Mr. Lamey occupies. So it may not be as important to have that in there. And I know there are some legal concerns about issuing it to the applicant. So that may be kind of taken care of if in the other conditions.
Thank you. Brad, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, Madam Chair, yes. Just I know these applicants are acting in good faith. However, I would love to see the exact list of chemicals being put on the premises, because it is groundwater 1 before I personally want to make a decision. That's just my input. I want to know exactly what's going on, and I want our town engineer to know what's happening, what's going on that property before we make a decision.
Thank you, Brad. Mr. DeMar?
Yeah, our initial list, and I don't have the exact amount that we submitted, it was a big list, but then when we were asked, well, what about stuff that you use to clean the bathroom and other stuff? We had like 16-ounce or 8-ounce containers of different windshield wiper fluid or something. So we put everything we could imagine on the next list. Not that the first one was trying to avoid it, but, and you can see part of the list here where we'll have 24 16-ounce containers of this grease, or the Armor All will have 23 28-ounce containers of that, and all this stuff in the list that wasn't on there, and shame on us for not having every single piece on there. they're all stored in a cabinet that's secure, but they're all things that come in a little box. And I don't think there's a container there that's bigger than a gallon, yet we do have them. You know, the windshield wiper fluid, 24 1-gallon containers of that. Some of that wasn't on the original list, not with any intent to deceive, but when they said everything, then we went back and said, all right, let's get everything, including, you know, the stuff we use to clean the toilets. And so we put every single thing we could find, and that's what totaled up to the 772 gallons. But
Yeah.
Fred was pretty clear about, we need to see everything. And this list that's in front of you is everything with the exact amounts and the containers they're stored in, and you can have it tomorrow, but it's not what was submitted initially. And that was our mistake, not to go down to, again, you know, all-purpose cleaner. There's, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not asking for Windex. I understand you guys are acting in good faith, but there were some things on the list that our town engineer did not see prior.
For sure.
And it's not looking for Windex or anything like that. So I just want to make sure before we make a decision that our town engineer has access to all of these details. And we rely on our town engineer heavily before we make a decision. And so there's some things that could be Windex, it could be you know, carpet cleaner, I don't know, but just making sure that our town engineer and our building inspector has access to everything before they make a recommendation.
Great, thank you.
And
Brad.
then we'll make the decision based on that.
Okay, other members of the board? I'm just
I have a
scrolling
question.
through. Oh, 1 second. Scrolling through.
Yeah.
Was that Dick? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I have a question for the applicant. This maintenance building, what kind of floor drains will you have, and where will they be connected to? Is there a tight tank that's going to collect all the material that melts off these trucks, or if they're washed and so forth? And, or is it going into the recharge area?
Mr. DeMar?
Yeah, and I can leave that up to Vito, but yes, there's a tight tank, to answer your question, inside the building.
So all the flow drains will go into the tight tank?
Yes, anywhere where there could possibly be a spill inside the building, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Susie?
Hi. If we do approve the list of the chemicals and everything from the groundwater approves it and everything, who checks up on it like once they start business? Do we have a system in place for that, or this is just a general question for I guess Bob and the board members?
I think it's Fred, maybe.
And Fred.
Fred would answer the question, I think.
Well, what happens is if you approve the variance, the recommendation is that we have a specific list of chemicals, all chemicals, and that is included in the approval, along with verification that there's proper containment for all of the chemicals on site. And then once it goes into the variance, and then if there's a site plan approval and a plan approved, that becomes a zoning issue. And then at the time of the building application, building permit application, the building inspector and I would confer and make sure that what's being proposed at the building permit application is what was approved by the ZBA and the site plan. And then when the as-built plan is prepared, which is always required, once the building is ready to be occupied, we then do a check to see that the stuff inside the building matches what was proposed to be inside the building at the time. But to answer your question more directly is, it's Bob. As the zoning enforcement officer, he enforces the zoning bylaw as well as the special permits or variances that are granted, because those become zoning issues. And if they're not adhered to, then technically it's a zoning violation, and Bob can correct me if I'm wrong here on that.
Susie, are you all set?
Yeah, I was just wondering, because when we were talking about the list and then do we have the complete list? And, I was just wondering, like, how do we know that that is the complete list once we get it, if everything's granted, when things get going? It was just a process.
Thank you. Okay, and I do believe that to both Brad's point and I think Attorney Devereaux earlier, that this is not the last stop. This is the first stop. The next one would be in front of the planning board for the special permit with site plan approval. And at that level, again, they're going to have to bring this up because it's all part of the site plan and or approval. So there will be another check on that. Okay, I'm just scrolling back through. If I don't see you, just speak up, but, oh, Bob.
Yeah, I've just got a quick question. I didn't read the entire list of all the chemicals. Are you folks planning on having any DEF fluid on hand, which is diesel emission fluid?
Yes. We will, we'll be having probably a pallet load of DEF that will be over a containment tank and stored over in the corner. Not exactly sure where we designated it. Dario might remember, but yeah, right there, the 2.5 gallon containers.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay. No one has any questions at the moment. I do want to I can come back. This is a public hearing. If there are members in the audience who wish to speak, just please raise your hand and once recognized, state your name. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to come back. Oh, Mr. DeMar, do you have your hand up? Or is that, there's a little green arrow?
No, I don't have my hand up. I'm fine.
All right, thank you. Okay, so board members or staff, any additional questions or concerns? There were none in the audience. Fred. Oh, you're muted.
How about now?
Fine.
Good? All right, sorry about that. Just want to clarify that the condition or the recommendation from the Groundwater Committee that all of the toxic or hazardous materials be stored within the maintenance building is still applicable even if the list changes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And I know that again in the narrative, it references that vehicles will be parked for periods of time in Groundwater 1 as they either wait for their turn in the maintenance shed or that they're training. That is not an issue. I just want to confirm that that's not a concern of ours. We have parking lots in Groundwater 1, right?
I'm assuming that's directed to me.
Yeah.
And it is not a concern as long as the drainage system is designed in accordance with all the local and current state regulations requiring water quality separators before anything gets discharged to the detention basin or any infiltration. So, and there's an operation and maintenance plan that goes with that. So it's basically just a parking lot, which we have in Groundwater Area 1s or across town in various locations.
And any concerns related to that would be addressed should they move forward to the planning process.
They'll be part of the site plan, yes.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Yeah, and following up, Madam Chair.
Yes, Brad.
Mr. Litchfield, if you don't mind just mentioning that you want the chemicals, the maintenance on Groundwater 3, not on Groundwater 1. I just want that for the minutes moving forward, please.
Did you get that, Michelle? She's our minutes taker. Thank you, Brad. Okay. All right, one more sweep of the audience and then, okay, nothing. If there are no other questions, concerns, or comments, do I hear a motion?
I have a
question.
Oh, wait, I hear a question. Was that Dick Rand?
Yes, I have a question for the developer. where is this tight tank? We've had other buildings, maintenance buildings in town where they say they're gonna have a tight tank and we could never find it. Engineers couldn't find it. It's not on this plan, is it?
It's
Oh.
Vito Colonna. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so I'm gonna let Vito speak to that because Vito's gonna be putting in the tight tank. He's our civil engineer.
Thank you.
Vito Colonna with Cornerstone Engineering. So if they have any floor drains in that building, which they will need to have, would put a tight tank. We haven't shown it on the plan yet. Be part of the final design, but it would be located outside the building in one of the paved parking areas that are, so it'd be readily accessible. There'd be covers to grade so everyone would know where it was. And it would have a float alarms in it. So whenever that got to its capacity, an alarm would go off indicating that it needed to be cleaned out. But they would be required as, as part of the building permit process, just for those floor drains inside the building.
Okay. And Bob, you'd require that on the building permit, right?
Yeah, the requirements for a floor drain and a tight tank, it typically comes involved with the plumbing code, which is one of the things we look at. Basically, any structure built to take a vehicle with a license plate, basically, is required to have some sort of a floor drain with a containment system with an oil, water, and gas separator.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Paul,
Hey, Fred. So I just, I guess for me, I would feel more comfortable with a more detailed sort of, I mean, typically when we make these types of decisions, we rely on groundwater to advise us of the plans and the procedures and how, certain companies or, variances are going to proceed. And I kind of am somewhat uncomfortable with the way that this groundwater letter is written, in the respect that it's somewhat open-ended, and I don't necessarily it's not that I don't believe that the applicant is not going to provide all the information or do everything they say that they are, but typically our decisions, right, would be based off of a letter, right, that would have plenty of detail to it, from the Groundwater Advisory Committee. And I just don't see some of that level of detail, I guess, in the current letter. And I mean, I guess I would prefer that we potentially continue this hearing and have them go back to groundwater to provide all of the documents, and then just listen to the remaining portion at our next meeting. But I don't know how anyone else feels about this.
well, I mean, my first thought is that we often have special permits for groundwater protection. This is, I don't recall a variance for variance for groundwater is just more specific. And again, I think the oversight at the special permit level is where they're going to, definitely get down to that. But I mean, I don't know. It depends on how other people feel.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I may, I completely agree. I want to make sure that our town engineer is completely confident with what is going on the property. And I would also recommend a continuance, just to make sure we have all of our details in front of us.
Either Fred, Dick, or Mark. Curious as to what, Dick, I'm sorry.
Okay, just to say, I agree with Paul and Brad. I think we got to continue until we have all the information.
If that is the desire of the ZBA, I can ask the Groundwater Committee to reschedule a meeting and have the applicant submit the more detailed list to this stuff that's on the screen. I don't believe was part of the original application, and we'd like to get the containment details on where the stuff is going to be contained within the building and what kind of cabinets there are. That's certainly information that's important. I would like to have the ZBA clarify whether or not they're looking for a more detailed site plan, because what was submitted with the application for the use variance was not a detailed site plan. There was no drainage analysis. There was no design for the stormwater system. That is an appropriate thing for the site plan, but just need clarification. And I imagine the applicant would like that clarification as well, as exactly what they need to present to go back to the groundwater committee to then get a proper recommendation for the ZBA. So happy to have them do that. Just need to make sure we're all talking about the same thing.
Would this, if we requested, I'm sorry, Kathy.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say the details. I mean, this is very similar to 1 Lyman Street, where the variance first, the request for a use variance first came to the Zoning Board of Appeals, because that's a property that's also partially in groundwater area 1. That particular applicant did have a more developed site plan, but that's not required as part of this, as part of a use variance application. So, I mean, I think it's certainly appropriate, as Fred was explaining, about asking for, for this list that's proposed here tonight, to go back to Fred, to go back to the Groundwater Advisory Committee. But really, any details in a site plan is something that needs, that's really their next step that would be worked out with the planning board. And I just wanted to point out one other thing. Earlier, Paul had talked about the variance, running with the land, and that is a Massachusetts general law regulation that a variance runs with the land, not with the owner.
You just froze.
Yeah, we lost her.
Geez, and she was getting right to the cliffhanger.
Yeah, right. Right to the meat of the point. Yeah.
Okay.
I think what she was trying to say was Paul was correct about everything. No, I'm just kidding.
Tune in next week.
Right. Don't even tell her how her face froze. All right.
So
yeah. So that point on hold, her explanation about the idea of requesting a site plan at this stage is, it's something they're going to have to do if they get to the next step. They're looking to take this step first. I don't know whether our meeting and the planning boards will coincide where it will be prepared anyway. But while we wait for, Paul, you did raise your hand. Sorry.
Yeah, I guess what I'll say is, a site plan may not be required, but just, and I'll say, the difference between 1 Lyman and this, case is, 1 Lyman was storing cable wires, right? Where they are basically doing an automotive repair sort of facility here. So there's a big difference in terms of, the type of facility that it is. And I think that, at least for me, I just want to make sure that we have a full accounting of everything in terms of the chemicals and just a plan for the storage before the ZBA, the Special Permitting Granting Authority, makes a decision for the variance, right? So that we have the underground storage, the tight tank, all that stuff is sort of lined up for us to make a decision, so that there's no ambiguity as this proceeds down the road, if it may.
It makes sense. So since 3 people have voiced that opinion, and if we are going to make a motion to continue to our next hearing, we'll have time for Kathy to finish her statement. So let me just look, when is our next meeting would be the 26th of October? Yes. So I don't, before I entertain a motion, does the applicant have anything, any concerns with a continuance to our October 26th meeting to get that clarified?
Can I just speak? I'm not sure. What's your meeting after October 26th, in case we don't have enough time to get all this done by then?
Okay, so at this point, we're just asking for a complete list of the chemicals, I believe, before we can make our final decision. Is that correct, Paul? Right, that's what we're referencing?
Just, yeah, I mean, I guess I would just reference the section 5 of the groundwater list, in which they are going in front of the Groundwater Advisory Committee with a complete list of chemicals, pesticides, fuels, and other potentially toxic hazardous materials. To the description of potentially toxic hazardous materials, waste to be generated, including storage and disposal methods. So I think that's the section that we just want to have. I think they, in sort of watching the groundwater committee meeting, it was sort of left open-ended. And I understand that in theory will be taken care of in terms of the site plan, but I just would feel more comfortable if that was just, dotted with an I and crossed with a T before we, as the, SPGA, make that decision.
So I guess I'm okay with the continuance for the chemicals. The issue I have is we're sort of between a rock and a hard place on the site plan, because to the extent that you want to see exact locations of a tight tank or any other site plan requirements, my issue is that if we show you, it becomes part of your decision and then it changes when we go to the planning board, we then potentially have to come back. And it's just a lot of time. And so I understand the chemical issue. I'm just trying to understand how much detail you want on a site plan.
Okay, so I think what Paul's saying is that it's number 5 on the groundwater advisory recommendations, and we're not talking about a site plan now. It's a complete list of the chemicals, where they'll be stored within the building, to Fred's point. And Kathy is just telling me everybody at town hall is frozen. Can you call, see each other? Okay, yes, sorry. Yes. So we're waiting. There's Bob's not in the office.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I may, the town hall internet service has been dicey at best for the past few days.
Okay.
And I suspect that Fred and Kathy's internet service has basically crashed.
Okay. All right. Okay.
They're probably available by phone. I'm out of my house, so I don't have that current issue.
Okay. All right. So the members of the board, do we want to see, I think Fred was referencing that if we get a full list of all the chemicals and where they're stored within the building in groundwater 3 is what we're asking for before we can complete our decision process for use variance. Because that's the key issue with this use, is the chemicals that they're going to store even in that general area. Okay. All right.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, with that clarification, I'm fine with that too. Thank you.
All right, so then October 26th is our next date, or November 23rd?
Okay.
And so you're comfortable with October 26th?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So do I hear a motion to continue the hearing to October 26th at 6 p.m.?
I make a motion to continue the hearing to October 26th at 6 p.m.
Was that Dick seconding?
Yes.
Second. Oh, so there's no minute taker. Okay. So all those in favor of continuing this hearing until that date, roll call. Paul?
Aye.
Dick?
Aye.
Brad?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
And Fran? Aye. Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I forgot to say the public hearing is closed.
Well, we just continued it, right?
Oh, that's right. We did. Oh, shoot, dodged that one. Thank you, Paul.
They can show up next month.
Yeah. All right. So, so I guess we're gonna wing this without Kathy and Fred. So Bob, I hope you're taking good notes because.
Yeah, I'll be taking notes. I'll leave my microphone on.
Okay.
Just go slow when you do the presenting the motions and the seconds and the votes.
Okay. All right. Those I can take notes for. That's everything else I can't. All right. So if we go back to 9102 Shops Way.
And do you know how to get rid of the sharing of the screen?
Do you want? Oh, there it went away. Yeah. Once he went away, it went away. Okay. All right. So, all right. So here we go. All right. There we are. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. 9102 Shops Way. Concerns, questions, discussion. Paul.
I guess I'll go first. I really have no issues with this. This is basically replacing what the sign that's currently there. It's an increase of 18 square feet on a business that or a sign that would literally have zero impact on any sort of public good. There are already signs there within the entire district. I feel like we do this every other quarter, but I have no issues with these signs.
Thank you. Okay. I think we're going to have to look at our signage in the retail section because it does seem like we're always making it bigger, longer, brighter.
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Brad?
Yeah, I mean, same thing. I mean, we've talked about this with Lexus as well. They're just rebranding, just redoing some stuff. And that was one of my questions was, what were you adding an additional sign? You're replacing it. And so they're just rebranding.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of fork plate and goblet.
So I have no issue.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Fabulous. Susie?
It does match that they also have the pharmacy labeled and marketplace too. So it's not like it's like a picture and then it's going to be the only words. Like there are words labeling on the rest of the building too.
Gives a balance. Yeah. Okay.
Good.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, if there is no other discussion, does somebody want to make a motion?
I'd make a motion that we, being that we don't know the exact square footage that they're currently qualified for, I think we can frame it as an increase of 20 square feet to the current sign allotment for the Wegmans at the property at 9102 Shops Way. And grant them that variance for an increase of the 20 square feet.
Can we say on the left-hand side of the building?
I don't think it's going to matter because next week they may shuffle shop signs around. I don't think we have to be that specific. I would be interested in finding out if the variance is for just simply a certain number of square feet. I would hope that eventually we can clean this up maybe and find out how many square feet we really have there. But
so,
as I say, in the
Mark,
meantime, for business
Mark, I think I wrote it, I hope I wrote it down correctly, 57.3 to 74.3.
75.
Yeah. I'd give them the 20 feet just for a little leeway, but that's only the one sign.
Right.
And I imagine their variance might be for all three signs because of otherwise they wouldn't be here because it's 100 square feet total.
Correct.
Go ahead, Bob.
Just to clarify, the variance is for allowing the maximum allowed square footage of all the signs to be increased by 20. It's not just this one particular sign. The square footage talks about all the signs on the building. Excuse me. And the variance would be for adding 20 feet to the aggregate allowed.
Right. And that's how I would phrase it and just leave it simply that.
Makes sense. Okay. All right. So that was a motion made by Mark. And did I hear a second? Dick is Grant seconded. Okay, so on a roll call, Mark,
Aye.
Dick,
Aye.
Brad,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
and Fran, aye. Okay, thank you. Okay, on to the pool people. I do have to say, I thought she did a fabulous job reading. She's a very good reader. I mean, I was in, some people just, I rambled. I just thought she did a very nice job. So.
Shall I?
And
share my
researcher.
thoughts?
Yes.
Madam
All
Chair?
right,
Okay. I'm very sympathetic that I feel they were sold a bill of goods in that they were given a 1.3 acre piece of property, plenty of room for a pool, had every intention of getting it. From what I remember of this property, originally there was some weird subdivision into multiples, and it got squeezed back to only cutting it into two pieces. And the 100% coverage was kind of okay, take everything off the house, make sure it all goes into recharge, and let's, get everything we can off from the water that falls on this lot. Giving them the 800 square feet of non-recharge, I feel that that's, a small percentage of the 56,000 square feet of the property. It's 1/70th. And as I say, I guess I'm comfortable limiting it to 800 square feet and then essentially having their pool deck around it to be part of the recharge, because it will be caught and sent back into the groundwater. The only problem I guess I see is if something went wrong, okay, obviously if we get 10 inches of rain, it's going to overflow the pool. If the pool cracks, you're going to get all the pool draining into the groundwater. There are a lot of things that can go wrong, but then there are a lot of things that could go wrong on the 80,000 square foot property next door if they put in a pool. And I just don't see a good reason to penalize these people because of slightly smaller property. That's where I'm thinking.
Thanks, Mark. Paul?
I guess I would agree with Mark's sentiment about almost it being this egregious penalty of 100% of recharge. I think in going back to the minutes for the groundwater from 5 years ago and the ZBA minutes, because you guys did obviously grant a variance for the original property, it seemed like there were some issues with that current landowner in terms of, well, showing up to the meetings. And so having 700 square feet of non-recharged pool water on a 56,000 square foot property is only 2%, to Mark's point. When in any other property, they could put upwards of 12,000 square feet of unrechargeable land, right? Or I should say 8,400 square feet, given the size of the lot, because it's 15% of the 56,000. And really what they're looking for is just the pool. And we can put a condition in that says all of your patios, your sheds, everything else needs to be recharged, right? Because you either recharge your water or it's runoff. So, and the fact that it's a pool away from the street, away from the driveway, right? That should be a pretty simple solution for them, even considering the fact that their driveway apparently is also recharged into a side well. So I don't have an issue with decrease. I mean, basically, the way I viewed it is we're basically adjusting the variance from when the ZBA granted the original landowner for that one condition, where instead of it being 100% recharge, you know, we could make it whatever, 98%. And then they would be allowed to put the pool in. But I'll leave that to, you know, I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but, you know, rather than granting a full variance that they have access now to 8,400 square feet or whatever. But so I guess, yeah, that's where I stand.
Dick?
I agree with Paul and Mark. You know, the landowner 5 years ago would have done anything to get his separate lot. And he would agree to anything, and 100% was a reasonable thing to do at the time. But I can see it's a reasonable accommodation to let them have the pool.
There you go. All right. Okay, and again, I mean, 2% is not a lot. And even if the neighbor, I mean, because the one argument was if you put the two lots together, you could have, you know, 12,700 and something, but it's still, this is not even close to that. It's like 9% instead of 15%. I don't, yeah.
And also we saw the letters, so there were no objections from the abutters as well. So I think I like to take that into account as far as, okay, the neighbors, the abutters, they don't have an issue with the pool, and granted that our stipulations or conditions from 2017, I forget what year, but I don't have any objections.
Well, Fred, now that you're back on a point that Paul made, and I'm wondering whether this, if we did grant the variance, could we grant it with a percentage of impervious cover? So that it's just not a wide open yes, you can now have 15%, because we don't want them, I guess we're not saying we're going to grant them 15% impervious cover. We're saying that you can have this 2%.
Well, you can do whatever you want. You're the ZBA.
Totally true.
How often do you hear that, huh?
Yeah.
Because the groundwater committee didn't recommend approving the variance, I didn't put anything in there about how to go about it. So what the applicants offered was recharging everything except for the pool, but there's no design. So I would need to see that design and approve it before they actually got their building permit, if that's the case. You've closed the hearing, so we can't ask for more information at this point. So a condition, if you want to limit it to allowing the pool to not be recharged, but everything else. And that way, the 100% recharge of the rest of the lot still carries forward. So if ever they want to build a shed or a tennis court or something else, they'd have to find a way to recharge that.
Okay, so that's interesting. So so how would we assure that the pool does not become an Olympic-sized pool if we say that we're granting a variance for the pool? It has to be for a square footage or a percentage. And Mark always gives leeway, so maybe we should think in that way. I mean, you know, I'm rounding up instead of rounding down, right?
The application did, sorry, if you want to go ahead, Paul, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
No, Fred.
I was going to say the application did indicate that the surface area of the pool was around 700 square feet. If you wanted to give them that plus a little bit extra, just in case they end up with a slightly different shape, but not an Olympic-sized pool. Although Olympic-sized pools should actually be inside of a building so you can train all year. But
and that solves that issue. All right, Mark, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I have no problem if you want to call it a percentage, but if we want to give them, either way it works. if Bob had an enforcement preference of 800 square feet versus 1.5% or whatever it comes down to, I think he'd just have to get out his calculator and figure out what the number is anyway. I just figured 800 was easier to enforce.
Right, and I agree, and that's what when Paul was speaking. So this way here, it is just the pool. We're going to give them a little bit of leeway so that in case the design is different or that whatever. I mean,
right.
I don't know anything about building pools. So if everyone is in agreement with that, Paul?
Well, yeah, I guess, I mean, we're all trying to get to the same point or the same spot, right? It's just how we sort of navigate. So like, are we granting like a new variance to say, yes, they can have whatever, 1,000 square feet, or are we literally just adjusting the ZBA variance from 5? Because I mean, the way I've read this case is that ZBA variance is the reason why they are in front of us today, because there is that stipulation within that variance. That was a recommendation from the groundwater committee that said you need 100% recharge, right? So if we adjust that one stipulation from 100% to 98%, which is say 1,000 square feet, right? They could then, in theory, put that pool in, right? Or have. So I mean, we're getting to the same spot. I just don't know what's the easiest way to do it, or if Bob has any opinion on terms of like how he can enforce that.
Right, and
because
I don't think we
we're
can amend it. I don't think we can amend a previous variance. It's a new variance. Is how I would look at it. Susie, Susie, go ahead.
I just wanted to make sure that the problem was the recharging and not that it was chlorinated or salt water and if it overflowed or everything, right? It's just the recharging, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
In the surface area.
My suggestion would be you allow them some relief from the original variance to include in-ground pool to be installed without recharging the specific area allotted to the pool itself. And if you want to put a number of 750 square feet or some number associated with that, I wouldn't go too big because then, you know, there could be other stuff, but a reasonable flexibility on the size and shape of the pool does seem appropriate. They offer to recharge the patio, the pavilion, the whatever the other, there was another accessory impervious area. Still like to see all that accomplished, and then any future impervious cover would also be recharged. So however you need to word that to make yourselves comfortable, I guess would be the way to go.
Okay, thank you, Fred. Okay, so with all that, do I hear a motion?
I would, if I may, Madam Chair.
Yes, Mark.
I would like to make a motion to grant a variance to our, I guess, to our earlier decision, to allow a 800 square foot non-recharged area for the purpose of building a swimming pool on the property at 313 Brigham Street.
Do we need to say anything about everything else having to be recharged, like the patio? Or that's just a given, they would have to come back?
I guess I assume that otherwise our previous decision, our previous grant of variance stands.
Right, okay, perfect, okay. All right, so this is to grant a variance for a non-rechargeable area of no more than 800 square feet for an in-ground swimming pool. Okay, and I think Dick jumped out a second.
I did, yes.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so on a roll call, any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, on a roll call, Mark?
Aye.
Dick?
Aye.
Brad?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And Fran, aye. Okay. Okay, all right. Oh, and this one is, okay, we're continuing the last one, so we're done with that. I don't know if Kathy is actually on with us. I can see her name, but I don't hear her. And I see Michelle's back. So Bob, you don't have to take minutes anymore, hopefully.
Can
Oh, there you are. Oh, yay, we can hear you.
Well, you don't get to look at my face, but I'm here.
Oh, we did for Frozen for about 30 seconds. So that was more than enough.
All you can do is turn your video back on, Kath.
No, we're having a little issue. Okay. Jim's trying to solve it, but
okay.
So I'm assuming, you know I can get this from Michelle and Bob, but I'm assuming you approved the Wegmans variance.
We approved the Wegmans variance, yes.
And you continued the
Lammy property,
okay.
Bartlett Street,
okay.
to October 26th
okay,
at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
And Kathy, the Wegmans was just an approval of 20 extra square feet. It'd be nice if we knew the total square footage, and I would have no objection. I don't think the board would have an objection if the whole thing was later summarized as just the total square footage. But that's what we had.
Okay, we'll look for those details in the file tomorrow, and and if that's okay with everyone, I'll just add that in what the existing square footage is today.
That'd be great.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Kathy.
Yeah.
Kathy, what I have here is they're at 57.3 and they're increasing to 74.3. So that's like Mark said, 20 square foot.
Yeah. Okay.
20. But those are the numbers I wrote down.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So under new business, I have to say that. Oh, Fred.
I'm sorry, because I missed it. I got to know, what did you tell the applicants for 200 Bartlett Street that they need to come back to do?
They need to have a complete list of all the chemicals and locations of storage in the maintenance building, specific locations within the maintenance building.
So no fully designed drainage system, just the chemicals and the storage and the type of chemical.
Right. Attorney Devereaux said that did make the point that they could present it on a plan to us and then go before the planning board and have to then do a whole new plan, because that would be, they would have, have other issues. So that was all we wanted.
Okay.
So that information is to go to Fred and have them go back before the Groundwater Advisory Committee before your October meeting.
26th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So if you guys remember last month, I had hoped that we were going to start meeting in person come September, because I just longed for that. But as luck would have it, and the Delta variant and all that good stuff, it looks like we're going to be remote for a while. But I am happy to say that I am more than happy to hand this back off. It's different than doing it in person. Being chair, and it has its different challenges. But I am wearing my scruffy slippers, which is, I guess, one of the perks. But anyway, so it is time. It is September. This is normally, in the May and June timeframe, but because of COVID last year, Brad did hang on through September, and then I took over in September. So maybe we'll work our way back closer to the spring. But for the last time, I would like to entertain a motion or a nomination for somebody to replace me in this fabulous position.
I nominate Dick.
I'm sorry, that was Mark Rattan. I'm sorry.
I would like to nominate Dick Rand as chair.
All right, and Dick Rand, are you interested in serving as the chair?
Yes, that would be.
Oh, okay. All right, there you go. All right, well. Okay, that's a motion.
Second.
Okay, and that was a second from Brad. Okay, so on a roll call vote, Mark?
Aye.
Dick?
Aye.
Brad?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And Fran, aye. Okay, well now I will relinquish the honor to Dick so that he can take nominations for clerk. And I can,
We'll take nominations for the office of clerk. Any,
Mr. Chair,
yes, Mark?
as opposed to Madam Chair, I nominate Fran as clerk.
do I have to actually do anything? That's not a heavy
Second.
lift, is it?
For a second?
Second.
Okay, Brad seconded it. Okay, all those in favor? Mark,
Aye.
Brad,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Fran?
Aye.
Aye. So Fran, you're clerk, and any other business before the board?
Your set of minutes, your July minutes.
Has anybody read them? Has everybody read them?
I was not at the July meeting, so I will abstain from any vote on the minutes.
All right, Mr. Chair, I move that we
Aye.
accept the minutes from the July 24th meeting as submitted.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay. Fran made the motion, Paul seconded it. All those in favor? Fran,
Aye.
Paul? Oh, Paul's
Abstain.
out. Mark,
Aye.
Brad,
Aye.
Susie?
I was also absent from the July meeting.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. My one chance at voting.
You'll get others, don't worry. Okay, so we have a forward acceptance of the minutes, so minutes are accepted. Okay, any other business before the board? Seeing none?
Oh, I get to motion again. I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Fran,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Brad,
Aye.
aye. Okay, we adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.